I've been using the iPhone 14 Pro Max as my daily driver for about 8 months now, and today I'm going to share with you my impressions of long-term ownership. Let's talk about it. If you're looking for a bone stock iPhone review, I've already covered this phone back when it came out in September. However, for this video, I want to focus on what stood out to me having used the 14 Pro for the better part of a year. When it comes to utility and work, especially as a content creator, there's no mincing words. The iPhone is simple, straightforward, and to some, very plain. I'm not afraid to say it's the appliance I use the most, but more than anything else, the consistency is why I've been an Apple user for the past couple of years. Boring isn't the insult people make it out to be. In fact, that's kind of what I want out of my smartphone that I use every single day for my livelihood, as much as that might sound like an excuse. A lot of this reliability on the 14 Pro is a result of the strong hardware and software pairing built in. Apple's insanely quick A16 Bionic, along with the 6 gigs of RAM and tight optimization in iOS. This phone rarely chugs, despite all of the intricate photo editing and multitasking I do throughout the day. And on top of that, it's noticeably efficient as well. Where my old 13 Pro would get bogged down after a few minutes of heavy use, leading to a drop in performance and the screen dimming heavily to prevent overheating, the 14 Pro holds up way longer. In fact, my experience with the 14 Pro Max, generally speaking, improved quite a bit since launch. For example, my battery life took a serious hit compared to what I was used to with my 13 Pro Max. But now, after a few months of updates, it's stabilized to a point where I'm happy with it. That's a full workday of use with plenty more on top to get me through the evening. Plus, without even babying the phone and how I charge it, my battery health is still at 100%. The battery is like insane on this. I don't know what they did.
Maybe they're just lying to us.
Planned obsolescence.
It's Apple's middle name.
Apple Planned Obsolescence Incorporated.
Correct.
For context, I've been all in on MagSafe and have that optimized battery charging mode on, which supposedly helps manage the final 20% of charging where a lot of the strain on your battery can happen. 200 charge cycles in, it must be working because this is by far the slowest battery degradation I've seen on an iPhone. What did I say? Degradation. Degradation. Battery degradation, irrigation on migration. In the long term, my impressions on the 14 Pro Max's screen haven't changed since the day I got it. It's still a joy to use with its color accuracy, that 120 Hz refresh rate, and it's easy to see when I'm outside in the sun thanks to that 2000 nit peak brightness. But something that's worth a bit of discussion is the dynamic island, specifically how I feel about it after more than half a year. Discourse on notches and hole punches aren't going away anytime soon, but personally, I've gotten used to them. The same goes for the dynamic island. At launch, I thought it was a neat idea, hardly a game changer or the revolution that Apple tried to sell us on. But as a way to utilize space already taken up by the cameras to display useful information, it's cool. My only complaint would be that I'd like to see more apps take advantage of it, though it's not like I haven't seen my fair share of ones that do. The best implementation I've seen has been with the Flighty app, which is a flight tracker aimed at frequent travelers. On the day that I fly, it pins my gate and departure time right at the top, so I don't have to juggle through apps as I navigate through the airport. Yeah, Flighty is easily one of the best apps I've ever paid for. Also, as someone that uses my iPhone as a remote for the Apple TV, Dynamic Island provides easy access to playback controls for whatever I'm watching in the living room. It's a simple feature, but is easier than the old way of diving into the control center on iOS and pulling up the remote that way. Let's talk about the cameras. Apple introduced a new 48 megapixel main sensor to the 14 Pro's camera array, a big, long-awaited update from the 12 megapixel ones used in previous iPhones. 8 months of ownership in, especially for stills photography, I can say that it's been wonderful to use, with a few asterisks attached. First, let's get the obvious out of the way. With that extra resolution at its disposal, photos come out sharper than previous iPhones. I see the benefits mainly in everyday shooting, with the 14 Pro taking its raw 48 megapixel 1x photos and binning them down to a 12 megapixel file that's easier to share and store on the cloud. There might be more processing happening under the hood to make this possible compared to iPhones of the past, but rest assured, it doesn't come at the cost of speed or reliability. Taking photos and videos feel as instantaneous and consistent as always. Then, for more demanding photography, which might require a lot more detail, being able to take photos with that 48 megapixel resolution in 12-bit ProRAW has been awesome. Not only are things wicked sharp, oh! The Boston came out. I've been trying to get it out of him for weeks. Not only are things wicked sharp, but there's plenty of latitude to rein in exposure. This came in clutch on my winter trip to Japan, where I was able to get amazing shots venturing well outside Tokyo with some friends. But what I've been getting the most mileage out of is the new 2x zoom, which is actually a crop of the 1x frame. Normally, I'd roll my eyes at the thought of digital zoom. However, with that beefier sensor, the 2x crop is presented at a full 12 megapixel resolution. Actually, it's a great option to have, especially considering that the minimum focusing distance on the main lens is a tad bit far for my liking, especially if you're, for example, taking photos of food that are not quite macro close.
Sorry, I can't do that.
I know you can't. You're a watch, idiot. I do think there's more work that Apple can put in to make the other cameras in the array more meaningful. The ultra-wide saw a modest improvement with an upgraded sensor and improved clarity. However, the 3x telephoto is kind of in a tricky spot. Don't get me wrong, the extra focal length is nice in a pinch, but compared to that 2x off the main camera, the 3x looks a bit soft and falls apart in tricky lighting conditions. As it stands right now, there's a negligible difference in focal length to justify me using it over the 2x.
At least they're not faking pictures of the moon.
Now, I might be preaching to the choir. However, my biggest pain point with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, especially for content creation, is the Lightning port. It's a shame because I truly believe that iPhones offer the most balanced video experience on mobile. Great image quality paired with the speed and reliability of the native app on iOS make it especially useful for run-and-gun situations. We've relied on it a ton here at Overclock Media, especially on the Austin Evans channel, to capture random moments for videos, and it almost never misses, except when it comes to pulling clips off your phone and onto the computer to edit. USB 2.0 over Lightning takes forever to transfer, and AirDrop certainly exists. However, for files reaching into the gigabytes, the connection can get unhappy a few minutes in. This is especially a bummer if you start dabbling with the 14 Pro's big boy ProRes feature.
That's a thick-ass mod!
Which writes 10-bit 4K files that takes up gigs of space by the minute. We actually hung out at Marquez's studio not too long ago while he was working on an episode of Autofocus. To see this dude shoot 30 minutes of ProRes on his phone, start the import in Final Cut for him to edit, give us a full-ass tour of his new space, and come back to find the progress bar only at 75% made me never want to touch ProRes ever again on this phone. At least the standard H.265 recordings look plenty good out of the box for most of us, but high-speed USB-C on the iPhone can't come any sooner. Thanks, international bros. I've been fortunate enough to try a wide variety of flagship phones on this channel. Between the Z Fold 4, Zenfone 9, and the Pixel 7, I've never been more tempted to hop ship from my iPhone as my primary device. In fact, I have a secondary SIM card for this very reason, so that I can freely hop between my 14 Pro Max and specifically my Z Fold 4, which I use as my fun phone when I'm hanging out at home or outside of work. Android hits different on features, customization, and sheer product variety, which is exciting to say the least. However, specifically for me, leaving the Apple ecosystem is easier said than done. But honestly, I'm at peace with this. Other than the fact that I review an iPhone every year, I probably wouldn't need to get a new one otherwise. But it's good to know that the upgrades are a seamless transition, which is why people probably do it, if not for just wanting to show off their shiny new toy to their friends, because they have friends. My daily driver is an appliance that needs to be dependable and reliable. And with Apple, whether you like it or hate it, at least you know what you're getting, which is certainly a win in my book.